So to begin your building adventure, the very first thing you need to do is you need to head over to Sanctuary. If you look on your map, you should have a Sanctuary marker, and that's where you need to be. Okay, so once you have navigated your way to Sanctuary, you need to find the workshop. Now the workshop is this yellow building right here. It's pretty easy to find. It's got stuff like tools and workbenches inside that the other ones don't, so pretty easy to find. And just head inside, and again you will find these stations. Now the one you're looking for is this red one over here called the workshop. So just press E and you'll go into build mode. Alternatively, you can actually hold down V for a little while and you'll actually automatically go into build mode. Okay, so if you actually go into build mode, you'll find this big green border around Sanctuary, and this is the border. This is the area, the zone, which you can actually build in. Now, if you actually step outside of this zone, the game will try to actually take you out of build mode because you're not allowed to build in there. The area is actually pretty damn large. It's not just like a house or anything. It's quite a large area to play with, which I think is pretty fair. So, yeah, you can basically see the border stretches quite an area. When in build mode, the first thing you want to understand is that you don't edit the terrain. So, this road right here, that can't be changed. The sidewalk, that can't be changed. The grass, that can't be changed. This is all terrain features and that is not editable. What is editable is objects, set pieces, and these are actually quite easy to distinguish from terrain. For example, this mailbox over here, this is an object and you can tell because it glows when you look at it. So basically, if you just walk around, you'll notice that some objects glow. This car will glow, this door over here will glow. In fact, actually this house will glow. So anything that glows is an object and that is actually editable. Okay, so now let's look at the interface. So if you walk around a little bit, you'll notice that some objects appear orange and some appear green. So if you can see, this one is orange and this one is green. And the difference between these ones is the orange ones are basically scrap objects. So you can't actually interact with these beyond deleting them. You can't move them around or anything. So if you just press R, for example, I'm not going to because I want to keep it. But if you press R, that will just scrap the item and get rid of it. But you can't move it anywhere. On the other hand, so if we take a look at this green item, so this stool, if you actually press E, you can actually move this around in the world. And you can place this pretty much anywhere. With some exceptions. So for example, we can just come outside and we can go right into the middle of the road here and we can just press E and place it down there. Now, one restriction is you can't place it in the air like that, and you also can't place it in the same space as other objects. So if you try to place it inside the mailbox, it won't work. Alright, so beyond just moving stuff around, there's also some handy little keys and shortcuts to make your job placing things a lot easier. So let's go to this house and do a little example. For example, let's try and set this table up a little bit. So we can actually take E, so E, like so, and something like a chair is actually pretty handy because it already auto-rotates, but let's assume that it's something that doesn't. You can actually either hold left mouse button or right mouse button, and it will rotate on the spot, and you can likewise do the same thing with F on the keyboard and G on the keyboard. So you can actually get exactly the angle that you want just by rotating things. So let's say we want to tuck it into this table here. Now you can actually also use the scroll, so the mouse scroll, to push it further and nearer to you. Again, to make your life a little bit easier. And as you can see, it can actually go underneath objects. So because this isn't actually technically colliding right here, it can actually go underneath the table, which is pretty nice. So once you're actually happy with that, you can just press E and it will be placed. Let's try again with the this dinner plate. We can just rotate it as we wish, and we can get some really nice, neat placement here, which is always nice to see. So remember, it's E to place. Alright, so with the basics out of the way, the next question you're probably asking is, how do I create new items? Because I don't want to just use those pre-existing things. Well, this is actually deviously simple. So, to create new stuff, you need materials. And where do you get materials from? Through junk. Through junk. So if you just explore the world, you are bound to encounter a lot of junk. So for example, we could collect this coffee cup, and that'll be added to our inventory. And that'll actually count as a raw material. So, if you want to view the materials that you have at your disposal, just open up your Pip-Boy. Okay, so when you're in your Pip-Boy, just go into your inventory and go to junk, alright? Because this is all of the materials that you have. So this is just a list of all the things you've got. So for example, you can see that this battered clipboard, for example, has 1 spring and 1 wood. This beer bottle has 2 glass. This Bloodborg Prospesibigus has 1 acid. This can has 2 steel, and etc. Now you can actually see just the raw materials if you just press C, and it'll list all of the raw materials you have, and it will tell you what's contributing to that. For example, we've got cigarette carton, duct tape, etc. And this way you can just basically keep track of all the materials that you have. So if you want any new materials, you need to go out into the world and find them. Why is there a floating wrench up there? Bethesda, you are weird. Rightio, now that we understand all of those basic things, we are ready to create new things. So you'll see the menu that we've been looking at, and to navigate it is actually really, really simple. You just use the arrow keys to go left and right. So we've got a few categories. So we've got structures, furniture, decoration, power, etc. And if you actually want to open one of these, you just go up and you open that subcategory. So again, we've got more categories such as wood, metal, doors, etc. Let's go into wood for now. That seems like a fairly cheap material. Another subcategory. So you've got prefabs. That's like pre-constructed buildings. You've got floors, walls, roofs, stairs, and miscellaneous. So let's, for example, go into floors, and we can open it up, and you can see that the floor is actually being previewed as before. So again, you can just select which one you want to go for. For example, we can go for pretty much any one we want if we've got the materials. So you can actually see the there's actually a little thing that tells you what materials are needed, what you've got, and if you haven't got one, then you can't actually preview it, unfortunately. So let's go with something simple. Let's just go with the first one that we saw. So again, we can just rotate these with the mouse buttons or the keys, and we can place it where we like. But again, we can't place it inside the other objects. But a nice little side effect there is that you can actually see what it looks like before placing it. So when it's green, it's all green. When it's red, you can actually see what it is you're placing. So for example, we're just going to place this down here with an E, and it will be placed into the world. So if you actually get something like another floor, you'll see that it actually clips down into place to actually align with previous floors, which is pretty nice little feature. You can still place it as you wish, but that is pretty nice. But we're not actually going to place a wall, floor. We're going to place a wall. So let's go with a metal wall. We've got a fair bit of metal. Let's go with this one, which I thought was pretty nice. We can actually have a look at that. Just turn it around. It's kind of like a circular metal door. It looks pretty cool. So we'll just place that, for example, here. And we can just press E, accept, and it's now in place. So let's actually just exit out of build mode. And we can admire our fantastic craftsmanship, and we can just walk through that, and it's now a structure in the world. That is really, really impressive. Another interesting thing to note before the Deathclaws come to rip my guts out is if you actually go into your Pip-Boy, go into your junk, for example, and just drop this cigarette carton. We could drop the cigarette carton if we want to with R. That'll drop it into the world. Go out of the Pip-Boy and go back into build mode, so holding V. Using build mode, you can actually place these dropped items more precisely. So you can just press E, and we can just go put that wherever we like. For example, we can just go put it over here. That works. Just press E, and now that's actually placed where we want, nice and precisely. Well guys, that is pretty much all there is to the basics. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, a like is always appreciated. Subscribe if you're not already. Thank you very much for watching, and good luck in the wastelands. I really do pray for your soul.